Hi, everyone. Welcome to our 6th annual Border Book Bash. I'm Margarita Longoria, and today, right now, this time, I have my Adventure Awaits panel with these amazing women, and I'm so excited for them to share their stories and everything with you. So, first of all, I'm going to ask everybody to introduce themselves and to please tell us where you're tuning in from and a little bit about your books. Dana?
Oh, hi. Hi, I'm Dana Middleton. I write for middle grade. My most recent book is called Not a Unicorn, which is about a girl with a unicorn horn on her head. And she's 13. So guess what? She doesn't want a unicorn horn on her head. So it's really about self-acceptance and also figuring out like what will one do to change and be careful what you wish for and all those kinds of things. I am from I'm whatevering in here from Los Angeles, and I'm very happy to be here today.
Thank you. Okay, PJ?
Hi, I'm PJ Hoover, and I am coming to you from Austin, Texas, where it is raining and cold today, weirdly. Yeah, we're having like a weird dip in weather, but I write middle grade, young adult primarily, but I also write chapter books for younger kids and some adult books. And I've just recently edited an adult anthology also. And the question was what? Sorry.
No, just to tell us who you are, where you're from, and your books.
Oh yeah. So my books. So I have my two most recent books here. So this was Homer's Excellent Adventure, which if you are a fan of books for mythology fans like Rick Riordan and stuff like that, this is a really fun story about 12-year-old Homer who hates writing but has to come up with a really good story or else. And then I'm a huge Indiana Jones and Laura Croft fan. And so The Hidden Code is a young adult adventure story, kind of in the vein of I would say like the Indiana Jones, and it's about a girl who goes looking for an ancient artifact and her parents disappeared 11 years earlier searching for that ancient artifact, and so she is bound and determined to find them if there's a chance they're still alive.
My dog he's back there sleeping. He's elderly, so he might perk up hearing your dogs, Trisha. I'm Jessica Lee Anderson. I too am in the Austin area where it is just cold and dreary and just a rainy day, which makes joining online to talk about books even more exciting. I've been doing some writing this morning, and I love talking about adventures. I write for middle grade and some younger readers as well. So I also do fiction and nonfiction. So one of my most recent books is Fangs, nonfiction. A lot of facts about snakes in there and also other fanged creatures. And then I also have some other adventure stories for younger kids, like Penguin Presses On, which is a adventuring animals that go out and they are news reporters. And so they report on happenings in their area. And I also have a middle grade novel, which is my most recent novel, Uncertain Summer, and it's a Texas Bigfoot adventure. So I write a little bit of kind of everything, but I definitely love jumping into the adventure of writing.
I'm really excited to have this group together because adventure books, I think a lot of times people see, and it was on purpose. Like my last panel was a book, I had all men. It was a guys read, guys write panel. And I wanted to do a panel with women, but not necessarily your typical, like what women, like what we typically think women write. Like, and we do write fun romance, and women love romance and cute stuff like that, but women also write adventure books and books that are not necessarily the stereotypical, so that's why I was really excited to have this group together, because your books are a little bit different from, you write everything, you write everyone, and you all aren't just like with one particular like genre, I guess is what I'm saying. So thank you all for being here. So before you were a writer, and I know I'm asking this on purpose because I've had PJ in my schools, and before you were a writer, what were you doing? And if you weren't a writer, what would you be doing? Go. We can start with Dana.
Oh, am I going to start? Okay. Let's see. You know what? I used to work in film production, and I used to write screenplays on the side and things like that. it took me, I came to writing prose and writing for kids late. So I got to say, no, I'm where I want to be. I've already done those other things. I've done a lot of other things and I'm where I want to be. But if I really had to do something else, it would have to do with travel, like just maybe be a professional traveler who wrote, who was paid a ton of money for writing a blog once a week about her travels. That's my dream job. How about that other than writing? But other than that, I'm happy to be a writer. That job, of course, is non-existence, but I really do love where I landed. I just think it's the greatest group to write for.
Yes. Thank you. PJ?
Okay, so yeah, as Margie was kind of hinting at, I wasn't always a writer. And before I wrote books, I was actually an electrical engineer for 15 years. I designed computer chips for cell phones and e-readers like Kindles and stuff like that. And I always, like growing up, I always just wanted to be like an engineer and use like computer programming and math and science and stuff like that. So that was what my passion was. But the interesting thing about my path is when I was in college, like before I went on to graduate school, I had one of these like moments where I'm like, wait, maybe I don't want to be an engineer. Maybe I want to be an archaeologist. And so I was bound and determined to be an archaeologist. I stuck around and I got a history degree for a year. And then I was like, wow, that's like a lot more school I'd have to do ahead to be as good as Indiana Jones. And so also I started thinking like living in a tent wouldn't be very fun. And so yeah. So I went to graduate school for engineering and I loved it. But it was really after I had my second kid that I started thinking, because I'd always been an avid reader, but I started thinking, maybe I could actually start writing stories. I could start creating worlds of my own. And so I gave it a chance and I was able to do that in the evenings after my kids went to bed. It worked really well. And so that's what I do full time now. But I should preface that and say, when I say I am a full-time writer, that isn't just me putting down beautiful words all day long. That's me. I write science curriculum articles for elementary school students and teachers. I also do a lot of editing of other people's manuscripts. So there's a lot of things involved besides just the writing of it.
Yeah.
Oh, and what would I be doing if I weren't writing? Wow, can I be on Dana's travel blog? I don't know.
Come on.
Pick me too.
I know, like this sounds kind of amazing. I think we can make this happen. No, I'm really happy right now, but I think it would just be maybe not doing the extra editing work also to pay the bills. Yeah, just writing the words. No, it's fun. So, but okay, archaeologist. We'll go with archaeologist, and that's it.
Take me on some of those archaeology like adventures.
Right.
That sounds amazing.
Indiana Jones.
That's right. We can imagine hats.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I definitely want to go on this like adventure tour, like and go and travel. That sounds amazing, Dana. So my background was as a teacher, and so I enjoyed teaching and being in the classroom. And it was actually when I was studying to become a teacher, I had taken a children's literature course, and that course kind of just changed my life. I was like, I really want to write for kids, and I knew that was kind of one of my callings. And so even though I was, in the classroom, I would get to my school, sometimes half an hour early just to get that 30 minutes of writing time. And I would skip lunches sometimes, or, like as a teacher, oh my goodness, you have to scarf your food down really fast. But I would spend like 5 minutes writing, and it was amazing. Like I was able to write my first novel while teaching. And I just knew that was what I had wanted to do. And if for some reason I was not allowed to write, because I feel like this is my calling and this is what I love to do, I might go into medical school. I think that might be one of those things, but I'm also really into paleontology. Like I didn't realize that. And I have a thing when I was in college, I almost became a botanist. I was in this botany class and this like professor took me aside. He's like, you really need to consider a career as a botanist. And so I thought about studying plants and kind of studying nature and all of that. That didn't quite work it out. I stuck with my teaching plans, but that kind of led, and I think it helped me also in writing for kids.
Yeah. That's cool. I didn't know that.
Don't you think that's true though? The more that you learn outside of this, the more you bring to it.
Absolutely.
So it's really important to have other interests.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when I write the science articles, every single article I write, I discover something new, some new cool fact. And I'll like text my son. I'll be like, did you know?
And he'll be like, thanks a lot, Mom.
Well, he's a biology major, so it's perfect. But it's like you can blend that into your writing when you're doing it.
Yeah.
And also it's amazing what then you pick up on other reading also when you're reading other people's stories.
Yeah, and one of the things that I had done for a different story, like it was, these moments that you have that you're really curious about or you want to learn about, I think those kind of lead into, little tidbits in the story. And when I was doing some dinosaur, kind of going back to the paleontology thing, researching about like dinosaurs, did they have feathers? What colors were they? There were just so many like things that just aren't fully known. And like, I just had all these like questions and like, I was able to, like in one of my books, every question that I ever had as an independent thinker, I got to put into one of, into this little chapter book called Twist in Time. I mean, I think anytime you're really curious or you want to learn more, there's opportunity for books there.
Yeah, that's cool. I always wanted to be a librarian, so I am a librarian. So I'm right where
An amazing one. We have
Yes.
to say, very amazing.
So I remember being a little girl and going to the library because my mom would take me to the library because she was always going to school, like me, always going to school. And she would kind of just like, okay, go. And she'd go with her little study groups, and I would go roam the stacks. And I remember looking at the librarians thinking like that they were the most beautiful, smartest women because they're all women, and they would have the way they dressed, these little. Everybody was just so pretty, and I was like, I want to be a librarian. I want to be a librarian. So yeah, so that's why I became a librarian because I wanted to be smart. Like the librarians whenever I was little.
I love it.
Okay, so I always like for readers to know, and for like young people to know where the love of books and reading came from some of their favorite writers. So please tell us who some of your favorite writers are and how you fell in love with reading. Okay, Dana?
Oh, somebody else go first. I want to hear what they have to say.
Jessica, why don't you go first?
Okay, Jessica.
Oh, sorry, there was like the little moment that my computer froze for a second. I was like, oh no. My mom read to me, and so I think we just shared the gift of stories together, and I think that just really implanted a love of books. And Margie, when you were talking about your love of libraries, that was one of the places that I always felt at home. My dad was in the Air Force. About every 3 years, during my younger years, we were moving. And the first place we always found was the library. And I always felt at home there, even though everything else was just kind of, up in the air. And I read anything and everything. I read I read fantasy, contemporary fiction. I read a lot of Judy Blume books. I mean, whatever I could get my hands on. And then I got to know my librarian, and Miss Dozier would have a stack of books. And before she would even kind of put them in circulation, she would let me be the first reader of them, because some of the books would always, long lines, and that was, I think, one of the reasons I think I just love to read so much is I go back, and that's where some of my fondest memories are.
Okay, so I'll go. I would say, like in elementary school, the books that really stuck out to me were The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when our teacher read that aloud to us. And I think everybody heard that book and wanted Turkish Delight, just like delivered to them on trays, which I'm still waiting for that to happen. Yeah, and then at our book fair in elementary school, I discovered the Choose Your Own Adventure series, and I bought the 6 books that were available for that Choose Your Own Adventure series, and I fell in love with the idea of that interactive format, those adventure stories where you could make choices about what the characters would do and what the outcome of the story would be. And then I also remember very, very well, like I was a Nancy Drew fan, but in 6th grade, we had an author visit. It was like the only author visit I ever had in my entire school career. And it was the author of the Trixie Belden books came to our classroom and talked with us. And I was just like, my eyes were like this big. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most amazing thing ever. I read 36 Trixie Belden books after that. Like my mom bought them all for me. Like I still have my Trixie Beldens. But I think it's like, those are the moments that are like really where that true love of just immersing yourself in the characters in the world and wanting to be someone else. I used to want to have a boyfriend like Trixie Belden had, and like I wanted him to be named the same thing and have like the same color hair. It's so weird. But then when I got to high school, I think that's when I really started to kind of more finesse what I truly enjoyed reading, as opposed to just like assigned reading that we'd get in school. And I remember one of my English teachers in 10th grade we had some book assigned, and I just thought it was really boring. It was, and I went up and I asked her, I said, Mrs. Byrne, can I read something else besides this book? And she gave me like a science fiction book to read instead. And I was hooked on science fiction and fantasy. And so it was really like, that's where I think it was like this love of creating these other worlds where like Tolkien and Asimov and Roger Zelazny come in, you know, and David Eddings. I mean, like these were the stories. Like my son and I were just looking at his bookshelf, clearing books out. And I'm like, you see the ones that I've saved. These are the ones that matter to me. It's my Trixie Vellums, my Nancy Drews, my old sci-fi fantasy hardcovers that I love so much. And these are the ones that I think that's where my love of reading really, really took hold.
Well, I don't have the same experience, or didn't have the same experience with the librarians that you had when I was in elementary school. I don't feel like I was very guided. I didn't, you know what I mean? I didn't feel like anybody, a parent, or my parents are great, but they weren't, you know, they didn't really like say, hey, this is what you need to read, or a librarian or teacher. So I think a lot of what I found was just because I liked the cover, frankly, or something just appealed to me. Beverly Cleary, you know, you'd read those books because they were like, oh, what is this? I love mythology books. I think I've loved your book, Jessica. I probably love it right now. Who did mythology? No, that was you. Which one? Trisha. I'm sorry. Trisha. Yes, I would love your mythology.
You're good. I got to say they're excellent.
I'm going to check it out. So I love those kinds of things, you know, really like remember reading things like Where the Red Fern Grows and those and I read the Little House on the Prairie books. I know those have some problematic issues later, you know, now, but those as a kid were really intriguing to me, going on adventures and, you know, adventure awaits, you know, so there, you know, I think it was just kind of what came into my space, Nancy Drew, all those kinds of books, but there wasn't really a plan. I like to read, but there wasn't really a plan. And I kind of have, and a lot of middle grade fiction, which wasn't called middle grade fiction when I was a kid, I also have learned as an adult, you know, like, oh, I didn't read that. What was that? And that's really been fun too.
I have a question from someone, Jason. Have you ever found yourself reading or writing something totally outside your normal realm, which ended up being an eye-opening experience for you?
Jason, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm going to say yes. Can I just say yes to that? Because writing a book about a girl with a unicorn horn on her head, I had not written fantasy. I'd written a little bit of like some magic in like the Infinity Year of Avalon James in my books. There's a little magic or mystery usually. This is not a unicorn is not a fantasy book, but it has pieces of fantasy, you know, low fantasy. And the idea of doing that was really scary to me. And I was afraid that, wow, this is such a weird idea. People are going to think I'm weird. You know, I really had that feeling. I thought as a grown person, you know, I'm feeling just like my character who feels weird. So that was eye-opening to be able to go ahead and push through that anyway. And really come to love a character who was unexpected, who came to me unexpectedly.
And I'll jump in and answer also. I would say this year, 2021, for some reason, I've never thought of myself as like a super feminist or anything like that. Just being a female engineer, I was just like, I'm just an engineer and everything like that. But apparently 2021 has been like the year of my feminist writing, I think, because I have two projects that have been very different than anything I've worked on in the past. And the first one, it comes out next year, actually. It is a nonfiction book. I've never written nonfiction before, but it's a nonfiction book featuring 15 female coders and engineers. And the whole experience was absolutely eye-opening from starting like creating my list, emailing the women, setting up these interviews with them, trying to transcribe and come up with like, you know, this to fit their lives and their experiences into 2,500 words a piece and stuff like that. It was a fantastic experience. I'm really excited about this book.
Oops.
Hopefully she'll come back in a second.
Yeah, it's probably because they're having crazy weather. Y'all are having crazy weather.
We're having some really bad weather today.
It's supposed to hit us tomorrow, the bad weather. Well, good weather, because I can't wait.
Yes, get your fuzzy socks out, your hot chocolate,
yes.
All of that. Yeah, well, I can fill in while hopefully Trisha will come back in a second. You know, Dana, you were talking about reading a book, you know, that maybe a middle grade book as an adult, like, oh, I didn't read that when you were young, I had a recent experience of reading Black Beauty, and that was really eye-opening from a sense, because, obviously it was a historical book. And, but it was eye-opening in a sense of, really caring about animal welfare. Not that I didn't care about animal welfare. I mean, I've always been very, compassionate and all of that. But, from the horse, and, you had like, not just the horse, but like how these people were treated, from these classes that had to work as cabbies and all of that. Okay, Trish is back, so I'm going to go. But yeah, that book was really eye-opening, kind of reading it and just thinking too about how it changed kind of the landscape of how people thought about, first person animal tales, and also,
Which book was that?
Black Beauty.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I read that as an adult, kind of like Dana was talking about her experience, and that was eye-opening. But I'm going to jump back over to you now that you're
Oh my
back.
gosh, I'm so sorry. It's the internet. I don't know.
Well, we're having such bad weather today. So.
I feel like that's what the pandemic has become, us apologizing for our dogs and the internet.
And inappropriate things that like might happen in the background. Sorry.
I have to make sure my toilet isn't showing. My toilet's like right there. I have to make sure it's not showing and stuff. Okay, I don't know where I got cut off. I was talking about my Women of Power Problem Solvers book that comes out next fall, 2022, from Chicago Review Press. It's going to be amazing. But the other my other feminist-ish book, I would say, is actually an anthology that I edited, and it is through the Castle of Horror series, and it is called Femme Fatale, and it is 16 horror stories written by women about women. And honestly, editing and reading and writing these stories about a femme fatale, first off, like when you write your own story about this, you find this like dark place inside of yourself you never really knew existed. Which is really fun. And but then reading what other people what their stories are too, it's great. And so I like to say, it's like, do you ever really wonder what she's really thinking? Now you would know, if you read the book. So that's out. It's called Castle of Horror, and it's the Femme Fatale anthology. I should close it and say it is adult. It's technically adult fiction. So yeah.
And that was, I got to write a short story, and that was from a writing standpoint eye-opening, because I was like, ooh, getting into that dark side and that mysterious, it was a blast.
Yeah.
So fun.
Wow. I was telling Jason that I had seen it. You were talking about it, and I didn't realize that it was from this I didn't know that it was all female femme. Like, I was just like, what? Like, why haven't I? So I'm going to get it today. I have like a list of because people have been talking about books all day, and I write them down, like, of everything that I'm going to order after the show. But that's awesome. Thank you, Jason, for that question. Okay, so as a kid, I know that we've already talked. I like to ask writers, because our festival is kind of geared to our teens and our tweens. Who were your favorite writers and books when you were kids? Anybody?
Oh, I'm gonna jump in. I even have my like old copy of My Side of the Mountain. This was one of my favorite books. And I was just always like curious, like, how would I do if I was, out and alone? Like, would I have fared well? Would I have done stuff? And then I read that book several times. I just loved that. I mean, like, I don't know what it was about, Sam's story, just kind of being alone and all of that. But I love that. And I also, Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. I even got a pet turtle named Dribble. I mean, I love that book so much.
That's so cute.
I'm gonna jump on what Dana said earlier about the Little House on the Prairie. I didn't love Little House on the Prairie, but like I loved Gone with the Wind, and I know, like, admitting that now, I feel like the biggest racist or something in the entire world. But I read that book 7 times when I was in middle school, and
it's big,
and it's this big, and what I really loved about it was just like how the author dove into like the history of Scarlett O'Hara's family and the father coming over, to America and stuff like that. I mean, problematic though the novel may be, it really was this weird view into this world. And so that was a big. So it was an author I definitely loved. I mentioned the Nancy Drews, Trixie Belden's, but yeah, it was really. I remember borrowing sci-fi fantasy books from one of my friends, like in junior year and stuff like that, because I think that's when, like, if you decide you're going to be reading a lot more, you start to read You kind of have this weird middle school time. Actually, one of my middle school teachers, though, she introduced me to Lord of the Rings, and so that was great. I mean, I read all the Lord of the Rings. I read The Hobbit. I've read the Silmarillion, and so that was like a big reason that I actually started writing books on my own, was Tolkien.
Oh wow! I also read Gone with the Wind when I was 12.
Okay, I don't feel so bad.
I did, and only one time though. But I read it again pretty recently because I wanted to see, like, okay, and holy smokes,
Yeah,
like it's still highly readable, really interesting, and so damn racist. Excuse me,
the lens is
so racist.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unbelievable that it's. I mean, it's really disturbing, it really is disturbing. If you read it now, it's disturbing. And it's also got all these, as a writer, it's an amazing work. So what do we do with these works is a huge question, because I couldn't recommend it to a young reader now.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a whole other panel, Margie, right?
That's a good panel. Like we should, that's
like, the books we read and thought were or even, were in all the libraries and people said to read, and they were just, everyone read them.
Well, it's even like The Breakfast Club, when people are talking about rewatching The Breakfast Club now and how inappropriate it is. But in the 80s, we thought it was hilarious and funny. And,
Oh,
why is it inappropriate now?
The Breakfast Club, yeah, I don't want to go into great detail on screen, but there's definitely some inappropriateness going on. Yeah. And yeah, you read about it, like The Breakfast Club and 16 Candles. There was another one.
For sure. Yeah.
Wow. I rewatched that and it was cringy. Like, honestly, I'm like, whoa. Like, but the fact was, we thought it was hilarious back then. And so I think that's a really good sign of how times are changing.
Yeah. And Gone with the Wind, I want to say, is on the list of like 100 books you need to read before you die or something. Like, there's a list of books that they say that you need to read before you leave the earth. And I want to say Gone with the Wind is one of them that's on that list. There's a bunch of probably inappropriate books that are on that.
I mean, it's a great book if you don't care about those things, but we do. And so in that way, what do you do? It's just really, and why didn't we really see that, or why didn't the world see that, how many years ago, all along the way? And that just shows you where the world was.
Yeah.
And more where white people were, frankly, not where the world was. So anyway, that's a whole other discussion. If I could go back now to my idyllic childhood reading, if I'm going to say what really inspired me and continues to inspire me, if I have to pick one book, it's going to be Charlotte's Web.
Oh, nice.
Because I grew up, my family moved to a farm when I was a teenager, and we always had animals, but we moved to a bigger situation. And I write a lot of my writing comes from that experience now, whether it's directly that experience or part of the feelings of living in nature and what all that means. It really is informed my writing a lot.
I love that, because I love Charlotte's Web. It's still one of my favorite books. And I remember always wanting to live on a farm because of Charlotte's Web. And my aunt had a ranch farm growing up. My aunt married a farmer, a rancher. So that was my exposure to and we would go, it was my dad's sister. So we would go to the ranch, and I loved it. Like, I always wanted my own farm and ranch just like that, because that was one of my favorite stories too.
Yeah. There are lots of adventures when you live on a farm.
I can imagine.
Lots. Yeah.
So, okay, my next question for you guys is, where do you get your inspiration? I know a lot of times we write for, like, my thing is I want to show kids, or to show how they can write from, like, themselves, like their own backyards. And where do you all get your inspiration to kind of show them where they can get inspiration to write as well?
I can start. Yeah. Okay. So I think inspiration, it's everywhere, right? I mean, that's the easy answer, is everywhere you go, when you're looking around, there's inspiration everywhere. But when you're writing stories, the key thing is to kind of keep your mind open to that. So if you are like Jessica and you see a really cool snake, you can write a snake book or a snake horror story, or blend that in. I get inspiration. I always tell people, watch TV shows, watch movies, read books, play video games. What were your favorite video games when you were younger? All those things feed into inspiration. And I know there's been some authors who are like, oh, I don't want to read anything else when I'm writing a story because I don't want my story to be too similar. But if you have enough media input of all these different sources, news articles that you get in your, New York Times News each day or whatever it is, all these things can blend in to form your own unique, perfect story. And so I would say, don't worry about copying someone else's stuff. That you're going to have your own unique story. Obviously, don't copy someone else's stuff, But if you have enough influences, like when I do school visits, I'm like Scooby-Doo. I loved Scooby-Doo. I loved Thundercats. I loved playing Q*bert. I mean, Castle of Doom. I mean, these are games and TV shows and movies that I loved. Star Wars. It's all inspiration out there. And so keep your mind open and just kind of soak in all these things, and then keep a notebook nearby where you can record them and write them down.
We were talking about that earlier. Jason had mentioned about fan fiction. Like a lot of times we get influenced with, I think fan fiction is also a really good way, like he said, that where kids can start. Like if they love something, like I love Jane Austen, I love Pride and Prejudice, and I've read every kind, and I love Mr. Darcy. So I've read every kind of Mr. Darcy, vampire Mr. Darcy, werewolf Mr. Darcy, rock star Mr. Darcy. And there's even a ballerina Mr. Darcy. I thought to myself, like, this is like ballerina Mr. Darcy. Like he was the principal ballerina, like the best ballerina in the world. And I was like, I don't know how, I didn't know how that was going to work. But it was the most beautiful story. This writer made this beautiful, masculine, beautiful Mr. Ballerina Darcy. And it's one of my favorite Pride and Prejudice fan fictions that I've ever read. So I think fan fiction sometimes helps young people get, they love certain things, and Twilight fan fiction and Harry Potter. Okay, next person.
No, I think that's a great idea for people learning to write, because you already have a character and you have a world established and you can just play in the story. Sometimes it's hard to come up with, or you can feel a little stuck around character and story, or that takes a longer time to develop. So if you know really well who these people are, then to jump in and say, oh, but what if? That's always for me, is the what if, what if this happens? And, I get inspiration literally just walking from one room to another. My best ideas have just land. And I think that's for a lot of us. It just, oh, where did that come from? And if it sticks around long enough, it needs to be pursued. And the other thing is, just remembering what it's like as a writer now, as a, I guess, grown person. I don't feel very grown, but I guess I am. Remembering what it's like to be a kid. I live in Los Angeles, but I've yet to write. Well, that's not true. I've just wrote with my old screenwriting partner. We wrote a book set on the West Coast. But for myself, individually, as a solo writer, I've never written a book west of the Mississippi, because there are no lightning bugs west of the Mississippi. And I don't understand a world as a child without lightning bugs. That's how I have to distill it. But that's kind of like, oh yeah, that's where childhood for me lives. So to think back, what was it like? What was the feel and the texture? And what did it look like as a child? I don't know. I think those things kind of seep through. And do you find as a writer that sometimes you realize, oh my gosh, that whole book was about something that I didn't even know I was grieving from childhood. Like afterwards you go, that's why I wrote that book. That blows my mind.
I think there's been so much great stuff that's been shared. I think I shared earlier, things that make you curious. Those are ways that I kind of feel inspiration, and also people inspire me. I have an 8-year-old daughter, and, things that she's interested in learning more about, things that she gets excited about, those serve as story inspirations. And she's quite a little storyteller. And so she likes to write when I'm, on deadline and different times too. And so she serves as a great inspiration. And I think, all of us have hurts, all of us have, joys, and these can kind of serve as story ideas. I wrote my first novel as a way, I was watching my grandmother slip away, and so I kind of just went from that place of, processing through that hurt and writing. I didn't really know kind of where I was heading with it, and then the voice started kind of taking shape. And so, I mean, even some of my worst experiences in my life has served as some story ideas. She had Alzheimer's. Yeah. So I think, for me, people and places, and I think writers are observant. They're the ones that just really pay attention to the world around them, the way something smells in the air, listening in to some really interesting conversation, and all of that can be story inspiration.
I want to ask a question, just like a different kind of like little fun question. What is your favorite food? And explain to us in grand detail why you love it and all of that kind of stuff.
Ooh.
In grand detail. Like I want to taste I want to taste your food right now. Because I haven't eaten today.
It's always hard to say my favorite because I just love food. I love everything. I'm just like I'm an eater. I eat breakfast and I'm already thinking about lunch. Like, I don't know. Fruit to me, I love. Like if I just had to pick one thing, I think because there are so many different textures and different flavors, whether sweet, maybe slightly tangy, and then think about like a Granny Smith apple, the way it's got that crisp, the sweetness, and also get that sourness. And now I want to go cut up a fruit salad after this.
Yeah, I think my eating is really funny. I'm a very redundant eater. Like I when I first moved to Texas, I would make a giant vat of soup and eat it for like the next 2 weeks every day. So I do eat a lot of the same things every day, like eggs. Eggs are one of my favorite foods, but it's not the one I'm going to say. But I do love my morning eggs are what I have to have every day. Oh, does coffee count as a food? No, coffee doesn't
count for me.
Yeah, we can't have the day without coffee. But honestly, my favorite food is going to be popcorn. And it's not just any popcorn, though. Well, first off, I love that you can eat a lot and not feel like you're like eating potato chips or something like that. You just feel healthier when you're eating popcorn, right? But I don't like cheddar popcorn or any of those like heavy things or caramel corn as much. I like butter popcorn or plain popcorn. And I like it in the old stir fry popcorn popper, the one that you put the kernels in the oil and it spins around and you watch it pop. And as a matter of fact, I hadn't had my stir fry popcorn in months. And then my son was home from college last night. We actually popped some popcorn, watched and ate that while we were watching The Wheel of Time. So there was our Friday night.
How is Wheel of Time?
It's really good. We've gotten 2 episodes watched so far, and I'm enjoying it. I read all 12 or 13 books, I guess. I read all 13 books. So yeah, it's nice to see the characters brought to life.
Okay. I'm going to say chocolate eclairs because let me tell you why specifically is when my mother was pregnant with me, for some reason she didn't have, there wasn't a car. I don't know what my father had it or they had one. I don't know what the situation. She was by herself in the house and couldn't go anywhere for some reason and had a real chocolate craving and she didn't have anything in the house. And so she looked through her whole, her joy of cooking or whatever, and she figured out the different recipes to put together chocolate eclairs and she made them.
Wow.
And so she's made that, and it takes 4 hours. It takes forever to make everything and to make it happen. Wow. So it's something we've had periodically our whole lives. And she taught us how to make them. And periodically I will make them. Not quite as good as hers, but they're so great. But they remind me of my mother. Mm-hmm. And it's just been something that was very special our whole lives that would happen every now and then. And I love them.
Now I want a chocolate eclair.
Oh my God. And I've been to Paris. I've been all over I've never had a chocolate eclair I like as much as hers. But that may be because they're what I first had, but they're so good.
That's funny whenever you think about that, because there's certain foods that my mom makes that my grandma or my aunts would make, and that I would go and I eat others, but this isn't as good because it's the way it's supposed to taste, because it doesn't taste the way because you have that was your first, I guess, but it is. And not that it's not good, it's just you need, I don't know. It's funny how food does that to us. What are some of your favorite things to do when you're not writing?
Ooh. Well, okay, I'll go. You guys are like, oh, if I'm answering first too much, please tell me.
No.
Let's see. I definitely love exercising. Exercising is something that I do try to do in some form most days of the week. I do Kung Fu as part of my exercise also. So I'm a fourth degree black belt in Kung Fu. So that's like a big part of my non-writing life. But the other thing that I really love doing, and I'm trying to prioritize and spend like one day a week doing this, is working around the house, doing stuff around the house, whether it's repainting a bedroom or I just repainted my sewing table, home repairs, installing new light fixtures, baseboards, anything like that. I enjoy it so much. You feel productive. You feel like you're using your hands and actually working and creating stuff, and it takes your mind off everything else.
And you do this once a week?
I'm trying to do it once a week. So I was supposed to today. Saturday's my normal day, but tomorrow's going to be my day because I had to go to Home Depot this morning and get some supplies. So yeah.
Oh, you had to go this morning in the rain. Oh,
I know, it was okay. I went to Specs too, and it was all fine. So yeah.
Dana, do you want to go or do you want me to jump in?
Well, go ahead. It doesn't either way.
I love to hike. I love to be out in nature. There's Bastrop State Park nearby that we love to kind of go and walk, and you just smell the pines and, kind of hear the crunch of gravel underneath your feet, which is good unless you fall. My daughter broke her wrist when we went there last time, but I feel kind of happiest when I'm out in nature, and I love the beach. If I could just buy a beach house and live my days out near a beach, I think I would just be insanely happy. I love the ocean.
But didn't you used to live in Hawaii, right?
I did, yeah. So when I'm near the ocean, it just brings back memories. And I'm not gonna lie, when I moved to Texas from Hawaii, I cried. They were, my parents were like, "Oh, there's an ocean here in Texas," and so we went down to Corpus, and I was like, "It's not the same." So I was a little sad. The beaches are different, but I still love. I now spend a lot of time with the Texas coach. We try to go in the summer if we can. There's just something about walking, on the beach with pelicans over the air and the breeze. Oh, I love it.
I keep telling everyone that next year Border Book Bash is going to be in Brownsville. I haven't told Brownsville, but I think it's going to be if we can do it live. I want to have it in Brownsville so we can go to the beach.
That would be amazing.
That would be really amazing.
So I'll let y'all know if I get it there.
Yes.
I'm the same. I like to hike, be outside. I live really close to the largest urban park in the nation, Griffith Park, where the Griffith Park Observatory is, where the Adele thing was filmed recently. I can see that from just about where I live, and it's so beautiful. And it's it's a great place to just to hike. And there are lots of coyotes there though these days, and I want to play tennis again. I'm starting to think like all the things I did as a kid, I want to do more of those things again, that you kind of let go of. But writing is a great hobby for a writer because it's the perfect place to work out your ideas, and to let things just to think and to be in nature seems to help my writing process a lot. Do you guys like that too? Does that help you as well? Yeah.
When I'm stuck, I'll just go for a walk, and even just that movement
anywhere.
Outside. Yeah, anywhere.
I agree.
Well, I'm going to ask this question because since we are like a teen tween festival, what was your typical Friday night at 16 and one of your funnest adventures as a teen?
I'll jump in.
We can't talk about on camera.
I was going to say, it was pretty wild back then.
Better PG, ladies.
I'll jump in. Okay, Friday nights, I was so tired. So my high school, I had to get up at 5:00 every morning because it started at 7, and like getting there took me a while. So and I was like really nerdy. My dad was like in the Air Force, all of that, and like we just didn't have a whole lot. So I knew if I wanted to go to college, and I needed to have a scholarship. So like I took so many classes, and I was just really nerdy, and I really spread myself so thin. But Friday nights, I was like, that is my entire night. It was just really boring to say, but like, and then Saturday night would be my party night. So Friday nights, I would just kind of go and really just rest up. But the funnest thing I think I did when I was a teen is I went cliff jumping. We went, and it was a group of friends, and we just came, and we had to go hiking up quite a distance. And like, I wasn't really equipped. I was wearing flip-flops. And then when I jumped off the cliff, I hit like the water with such force that my flip-flops like just, I don't know. I don't even know where they went. Nobody ever saw my flip-flops again. And I had to go climb back up the cliff with like my barefoot, but it was just so exhilarating. And I was hanging out. I like would hang out. I mean, not every Friday night was boring. But I would hang out with my friends a lot, but that was one of my favorite memories.
Well, hi guys. Hi, I'm so sorry. We have family visiting and one of the kids slipped and fell in the snow. And it happened literally 10 minutes before I was supposed to come on, and it was a bad fall. He's okay. He's 10 years old. He's okay. But, you know, it was, yeah. So I'm so sorry.
Okay. Introduce yourself. Tell everybody who we are.
I'm just so relieved he's okay because there was a moment when, anyway. We thought he would have probably broken a foot, and they just flew down from California today for a 4-day holiday, and they came to see the snow because I'm in Minnesota. They were so excited, and
I'm glad everything's okay.
Everything's okay. Yes. So I'm so sorry, but
Okay. I'm just happy that you're here and that everything's okay. That was terrible.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, so
introduce yourself and tell us about your book.
I know, and I don't even have my book in front of me. Do you have my book, Margie?
I do. I
just run into the room, but I should. Yeah, I think Margie should. So
I have it somewhere. Go ahead, talk, and I'll be right back.
Okay. So I'm Payal Doshi, and I am the author of Ria and the Blood of the Nectar, which is a middle grade fantasy, and it's a story about 12-year-old Ria, who's from Darjeeling, India, who goes on a quest to find her twin brother Rohan, who goes missing on the night that they turn 12. There's magic, there's dark secrets, there's betrayal, there's evil creatures, there's a ruthless villain, and it's a real, all and out adventure story. But at its heart, it is a story about friendship, siblings, and family. And yeah, this was really important for me because I don't see very many books with South Asian representation. And so this is my way of writing a story that represents my culture and my country, but also in a fun and a happy way where kids, like Indian kids, get to see themselves in books and be heroes.
And not only Indian kids, but a girl main character. That's what I was really excited about too. With this particular panel, like it was a girl,
And she's going to save her brother, so good. So yeah, that's me.
Okay. So right now we're talking about our typical Friday night as 16-year-olds and adventures that you had when you were a kid, as a teen, that we can talk about that.
So mine, I think sleepovers were huge. At that time, we were 4 best friends, and I went to an all-girls school, so all female friends. And so we used to, at 16, I remember, I don't know, we used to spend, like, even after school, I feel like, you just had so much to talk about with your friends. Like, it just never ended, right? So we would always end up staying over at someone's house. We loved watching scary movies. So I remember at 16 was the first time I watched Omen, the scary movie, and there were 2 of us in the group. There were 2 others who swore off horror movies after that, and the other 2 of us got really like hooked onto it. So that would be like the PG version of what we did a lot at 16.
Oh, that's awesome.
My PG, my 16 was, we would, whatever we did, but movies were a big part of it then. And I remember at some point seeing Halloween and thinking that that was the end. I mean, that was just the end. I just could not cope after that. Too much. I don't know. That was very hard for me.
Yeah, they were like, never again. I don't ever want to watch Omen. Like Omen, The Ring. I love them. Blair Witch Project.
I don't like those movies.
On another
panel, earlier today, we were talking about like crazy horror movies that we watched as a kid. And the one that I remember that everybody laughs at is Children of the Corn. Like that movie was so scary when I was little. Now
I watched it with my kid like 2 weeks ago. Yeah, it was just.
I will not go into corn mazes. Whenever I meet somebody named Malachi, I'm like, why did your mom name you Malachi? Like, did they not? Like, it's just no. Like, Children of the Corn. No.
Yeah,
I can't watch horror films
that's
at
all. Dana, do you want to go on about your Friday night?
Oh, that was.
That's it.
Or I will say when we moved right before like when I was 15, my family moved to a farm, and Friday nights. So I didn't know people when we moved there so much. So Friday nights would often be, an emergency, like a cow giving birth and us having to go down and help for some reason, and doing all that, which was really great. Actually,
that was adventure.
Those were my wholesome Friday nights. I'll say that. We go out with my father and we'd just be, in the mud and the muck and the snow and the whatever it was, and but that was really, really fun, and I'm so glad I had those experiences.
Yeah, that's
like when I think about my Friday night, like it makes me sound really boring, and that wasn't the case. I had lots and lots of fun, and probably did a lot of things I shouldn't do. But I won't talk about this because Friday nights, like I was a cheerleader. I was like captain of the cheerleading squad, funny enough, and so every Friday night was either a football game or a basketball game that we had to cheer at. And then I worked a job like the entirety of my high school that was at a bakery. I had to be at work at 7:30 in the morning, both Saturday and Sunday. So that makes my Friday night sound really boring. I think sometimes after the football games, we go to the McDonald's and get French fries and a Big Mac or something. But generally Friday nights was like that was like what they ended up looking like, because I had to be up early to go eat cookies and donuts at the bakery in the morning. Yep. So
I'm going to ask Payal, since she just to tell us a little bit about her book and the inspiration behind it.
Yes. So like I said, for me, South Asian representation was so important. In fact, Margie knows this story, but when I first wrote this book, yeah.
Oh, now she's stuck.
I was like hoping it wasn't me again.
I've been having this, but I think it's just I think everybody's probably online right now, but she got stuck. But her and I met Payal we've been doing book tours together through, since we all had a book come out this same year. So, and her book it's beautiful. So
it sounds wonderful.
Mm-hmm. I can't wait.
I'm really excited to meet her, and like my little group that we're with, we're kind of like doing little things together for the past like year. And so I felt really bad that happened to her today.
Well, it's never a good timing ever, it's always stressful.
There's always something. And then, but I've had a couple of people who couldn't join because of, and I understand that stuff happens. Mm-hmm. But anyway, guys, I was so excited to have you all here. It's been a fun day full of, because I adore every single one of you. And then I can't wait are y'all going to TLA?
I'll be at TLA.
You'll be at TLA. You're not going to go, Jessica?
It just depends on where things at, as Ava's got the medical complications, so we're still kind of, playing it safe as much as possible. So we'll see. Hopefully things will just be better. That's my hope.
Yes.
I don't know how much longer we have to do this. Like, when is it going to end?
Hopefully soon.
I hope so. But I hope next year, if it's all good, we can be in person and we can all get together live for Border Book Bash like we have in the past. It's always been fun, and it's always great seeing you, and you guys never let me down. So thank you always for, here she is. It's okay, but it's
guys. No, my day. What? We've been on so many panels. This never happens anyway.
No, it's never happened.
Anyway, all right. So real quickly, so my first draft was written with white characters, and it was only when I was workshopping it at a small writing workshop that I had enrolled for, did the teacher this was back in India, because I'm from India. I was born and raised in Mumbai. So it was there, and she looks at me, my teacher, and she's just like so like annoyed. She's like, why aren't you writing about Indian characters? And I swear I had never thought about doing that. And it was when that happened that I realized, well, how horrible is it that I just negated my entire experience because I basically loved reading, and I only ended up reading books that had white characters in them because that's just the majority of the books published. And as a 12-year-old back in the 90s, that's kind of all I read and sort of absorbed. And so for me, it was so important to write this book that had Indian characters. These are characters from India. And where their Indianness is not their whole entire being, it's like we're many parts of a whole. Oftentimes with an underrepresented culture, they look at that and be like, oh, so tell us more about everything Indian.
Right.
It's like, no, as an Indian, that's not how I look at myself as first Indian. No, I'm like, I'm a woman. I'm determined. I have, just so many different things that define you first. And so I wanted the Indianness to be a very strong part of the book, but like very seamlessly woven in, so kids can perhaps learn something if they absorb that. But also just for kids, South Asian kids, to see themselves in books, for other kids to see South Asian kids in books as characters that are empowered and brave and fearless and have magic and, can be heroes who save the world. Because I never, ever saw myself as a kid on the cover, as a hero, as a girl doing these cool, amazing things, saving realms. And I think it's very important to balance out the stories of pain and hardship with stories of fun and adventure, because all of our communities have, and all of our cultures have, both sides. And so that was the inspiration to write this book. So yeah, it's very close.
I'm looking forward to it. All the books sound so great.
I know, I've been researching on you guys, and I'm like, oh my God, you guys have written so many amazing books. But this is my first, so
congratulations.
Hope to stay.
And it's amazing. It's a one of those to keep you on your feet type of books. And I love how they did it. And I know that a lot of people are hating on Harry Potter, but I love how they have like on all of the little, like kind of like the Harry Potter books, it has a little
chapter
thing
illustrations.
The chapters. It's a beautiful story, and I loved it. Okay, so Jason says we have a couple of minutes. He asks, if there's time, I'd like to hear about your writing processes, like physically what you do and how much you try to get done. Who wants to tackle this one?
I'll just say real quickly, I equate writing to being a farmer. Once you get the inspiration, you have to just kind of plow your field every day. And that's how I look at it. It doesn't mean I have to do a lot, but when I'm in the midst of writing something, it means sitting down consistently. That's the only way that it happens. If I don't get a lot of words written, that's okay. As long as I show up consistently, a book will happen.
Yeah, I would say the same thing. I have a 3-year-old, so time is, very inconsistent. There are days that I don't get anything done, but I think just every single day I'm like, today I'm gonna find 10 minutes or an hour, and I don't put any pressure about writing goals or word counts or anything like that. So sit down every day, or go into that mindset of doing it every day. Like you said, consistency is key. I mean, you'll get there. 5 words at a time, 500 words at a time. Like, you'll get to the finish line.
I remember it was PJ, and I'll always remember this, whenever she came and did her little thing at my school, Bic, butt in chair.
Butt in chair,
like,
exactly.
Sit down and do it out. Michael tells me that too.
I
Mom,
know.
Bic.
You always magic elves will come write the stories for you, and they never do. And so
They
yeah,
don't.
you hope. And really, like it. And it's hard. Getting started is hard, but like start with a paragraph, and see where it goes from there. Just writing a paragraph is better than writing nothing.
Yeah.
And I've learned too, sitting down, get the work done. But I've also learned the beauty of having an outline and having kind of a map of kind of where to go. I don't have a detailed Excel spreadsheet like you have, Trisha, but I mean, I have, a good outline of where to go. And that's helped my writing process. So, have that kind of map it.
Wait, Trisha, you have an Excel spreadsheet when you write? Oh gosh, I wish I could be that much more prouder.
For some of my stories, I do. It's been a while, but yeah, like I'll try to like outline stuff and do my character development in Excel spreadsheets and my settings and stuff like
It's
that.
impressive.
Oh my gosh, I need to get back to that. I feel like I
Her
have
mind. She's an engineer. Like she's just
yeah,
more like
just
like
methodical and like
different now.
it's a methodical thing, yeah. And I mean, another thing that really helps also that I've started doing more is like just printing out something. And I bought like star stickers, and like when I accomplish little goals, I'll put little stars up on them. Yeah, so
those are my accountability stickers, because then it's also encouraging to look at a week and be like, oh wow, it looks nice with the stars. And then then on certain weeks you're like, okay, wow.
Yeah,
I really didn't do my big. Didn't do big.
Exactly.
But thank you guys so much for being here. This panel was, like I said, I wanted strong women who wrote books with strong characters. And I'm really happy that I'm so happy that we were able to see everybody's face, because I haven't seen everybody in a while.
Yeah.
And I can't wait till we can go live again. So hopefully next year we're in person, and I would love for everybody to come. So I'll let you guys know where I'm at with that. And it'll be with time, not a month before like I did this. So I was like, y'all want to do a book festival? Let's do it.
This was
Like
awesome.
About a virtual festival, I mean, I shouldn't be the one speaking after today, but the fact that we could do this like so quickly.
Yeah,
It's great.
It's amazing. And
Thank you, Margie.
Yeah,
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
This was so much fun, friends. Bye.
And I'll see you guys later on.
yeah, perfect.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye.